Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Where's Wetzler. I'm your host, Mark Wetzler. Today, I'm coming to you with a breakdown of my most accurate GeoGuessr duel to date. It only went 5 rounds, but 4 of the rounds were extremely accurate on my part, and it was part skill, part luck, but I was so stoked by the end of the duel. I was kind of freaking out. So I want to break it down for you here right now. And we'll start with the first round, which wasn't that exciting. This was the least accurate round. So here's what I was looking at. I honestly remember not really knowing which country I was in at the beginning, and I think I just started going up this hill. I think I was thinking either Latin America or Southeast Asia. I guess with this amount of scooters, it's pretty obvious that this is Southeast Asia right off the bat. And with a little bit of concrete here, it's, also an indicator of Southeast Asia. I think at this point I was probably thinking, I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking maybe, now it looks like an absolute, no, they're driving right, so I was probably thinking Philippines over Cambodia at this point. And eventually I got to some language, and I want to see if I can find the exact language I got to, because there was a mix of Spanish and Tagalog, or not Spanish, but Spanish style words. And by Spanish, I mean English. I am doing a terrible job of recounting this, but there was a mix of Spanish and a language that I don't really know. Yeah, so here we see Foursquare Church, Jesus Christ. And at some point there was some Tagalog too. Anyway, I was pretty sure this was Philippines. I wasn't sure where. But I decided to go near Manila because generally, in my experience, when there's lots of English, it's more likely to be near Manila. I was way off here. It was actually south. And looking back on it, there are some vibes that could have maybe led me more south. Something of the quality of the light and maybe the coverage. But anyway, not a terrible guess. At least I got the country, but my opponent's guess was better. And I actually took 1,000 points damage for that. But then we move on to round 2, and this is where the accuracy starts, and this is where I started to get real stoked. So let's move on to round 2. And this is the image I was confronted with. And right away I looked at this plate, and it says man. So I don't know if all the Isle of Man plates say man on them, or if this is just an insane coincidence. But I was like, okay, this kind of looks like Isle of Man. It says man on the plate. I'm just going to plonk Isle of Man. So without really much thought to where I plonked on Isle of Man, I plonked right here. And it actually ended up being the same road. And it ended up being 1.8 kilometers from where we were, which is insane. 4,994 points. A little bit of skill, a lot of luck, but I was stoked. So that was round 2. Okay damage since my opponent went down by Birmingham, so not crazy damage. Anyway, moving on to round 3, and here I think it was Gen 2 coverage on the GeoGuessr part. I think I can't remember if I ran this way or if I ran the other way. I think I ran this way because it looked more like a town, maybe? Yeah, I remember seeing that thing. And luckily I got to some signs up here, because at this point I wasn't sure exactly where it was. But I got to some signs up here. And this is where I started getting pretty stoked. So I saw Wexford, and I remembered where Wexford is. I remembered it was in Southeast Ireland. So it was 8 kilometers. And so I went a little bit west of Wexford. And it ended up being, let's see, I ended up being 3.8 kilometers away. My opponent did get Ireland, but went close to Dublin. So another great guess. Only 354 points damage, but I was just so stoked. 2 rounds in a row of really good accuracy. And next we move to this scenario. First thing I did was zoom in on this sign, Renovadora de Calzados, Gato, so cobbler basically. We got a white Google car. So at this point I wasn't sure what country we was in. I guess if I saw these street signs I might be more likely to say Peru, but at this point I wasn't totally sure if this was Peru or Ecuador or even like Bolivia or something. But I pressed on. I think at some point I just decided that it was indeed Peru. I can't remember if it's because of the plates or if it was because of the Google car or exactly what made me decide that it was like definitely Peru. As I can't even move here to like show you anything. This is frustrating. Okay. Anyway, sorry, I somehow realized that this was probably Peru. Oh yes, okay, thank God. I saw this, which says Caja Piura. Piura is a city in North Peru. But here's the deal. This doesn't look like Piura. If you've ever been to Piura, or if you have been to Piura on GeoGuessr, which I'm sure many of you have, you know that Piura is super dry and also quite flat, like crazy dry, like just sand everywhere. This, you can see some mountains in the distance. It looks a little tropical, a little lush. So I was like, okay, we're probably in North Peru, but we're probably not in Piura over here. And I didn't think it was Iquitos because Iquitos is quite tropical, like even more tropical than this. And so I was thinking, okay, I remember Tarapoto being like, you know, kind of a mix of the two. So I plunked near Tarapoto. It ended up being in Tarapoto, and that was just kind of an educated guess on my part, but I ended up plonking 8.2 kilometers away, and my opponent went northern Argentina. So that was insane damage, still not enough to knock him out, but really good damage. Moving on to round 5, and here it was just a random Japan round. Here you can see the classic Japanese telephone pole or utility pole, and I don't know if you've watched my channel, you know that when I'm in a built-up area of Japan, I always just click Osaka. I feel like it's always a good bet. It's a good hedge. I just feel like there's a disproportionately high amount of Osaka coverage, like even more so than Tokyo. It just seems to, like the Osaka, Kobe, Nagoya region seems to come up a lot. So I plonked Osaka, and at this point I was thinking, okay, if this is accurate somehow, just by luck, then this will be like the most accurate string of rounds I've ever had. And it ended up being Osaka. I ended up being 4.7 kilometers away. That was more than enough to take out my opponent and complete 4 of the most accurate rounds in a row of my GeoGuessr career, starting with the Isle of Man, moving along to this Wexford in Ireland, moving along to Tarapoto in Peru, and then finally ending with a very lucky Osaka guess. Well, a little bit of skill. I knew, you gotta have a little bit of skill to know that it's Japan, and you gotta have a little bit of just experience to know that Osaka comes up quite a bit. So anyway, I was stoked out of my mind. I wasn't recording, hence the recap right now, and wanted to share that with you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, and that's about all for now. I think my rating is actually below 1,000 right now, but right around 1,000. It slipped. I've been playing some duels and some other stuff, but it's still up there. So anyway, I gotta go to work. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.